Well, I always say Book Soup first in West Hollywood. That's where my first job that I had out of college, or when I was in college and after college, it's where I met my husband. And I think that's a terrific bookstore with like floor-to-ceiling, labyrinthine books, and it's on the Sunset Strip, which has seen many incarnations, and so it's just a really exciting place to be. I also worked at Skylight in Los Feliz, which is a beautiful, large space with a tree growing in the center, and it has sort of like a real DIY sense of community. Everyone who works there is some kind of artist, and they're always making stuff. Like Jen, who works there, draws book covers, puts them online, and Steve is always making pins, and there's like a staff band, and everyone there does something really interesting, and you can tell by how it's curated. I really like Word in Brooklyn. I went to Parnassus Books. Did you go there? Not yet. Oh, it was awesome. It's like in a mini mall. I got the cab, and I was like, this is Parnassus? This is a mini mall, like on this weird street. And then you walk and you're like, oh! And it's just really beautiful. And the nicest thing about it was all the booksellers who all had different recommendations for me as a really lovely little kid section. I also really like Avid Books in Athens, Georgia, which is a teeny tiny shop. But something about the teeny tiny shops, they get me the best because they have so little room, so they really pick exactly what, it's just so well chosen and everything in there. So that was a really lovely store too.
Everywhere I went on tour. No. I really like the last bookstore in LA. It's downtown and it's bizarre and they're like tunnels. It's just weird. And it's hot, there's no air conditioning, and there's no bathrooms. Yeah, so
It's
visit.
so beautiful.
It's really beautiful. It's like in an old bank sort of type thing. Yeah, it's an old bank, and you can go in the vault and do things. It's a lot of fun. I also like Literati Bookstore in Ann Arbor. I want to shout out Vaughn's in Lafayette, Indiana, where I live. It's one of the best curated bookstores I've ever seen. Bookbug in Kalamazoo, Michigan is a really good store that people don't know a lot about because it just opened. And then Women and Children First in Chicago is an amazing feminist bookstore. I have an office that I don't have to share with 2 or 4 people. My name is on the engraved panel just outside my door. My name is spelled correctly with 1 N. I have my own printer. The luxury of this cannot be overstated. I randomly print out a document and then sigh happily as the printer spits it out, warm. I have a phone with an extension, and when people call, they are often looking for me. There are a lot of shelves, but I like my books at home. In every movie, however, that I've ever seen about professors, there are books. I quickly unpack 3 boxes, detritus I accumulated in graduate school, sad drawer trash, books I'll never open again. But I am a professor now. I must have books on display in my office. It is a rule. I put a dry erase board on my door because old habits die hard. Every few weeks, a new question. What's your favorite movie? Pretty Woman. What's your favorite musical? West Side Story. What do you want for Christmas? Peace of mind. Currently, what is your favorite cocktail? The best answer, free. The department's administrative assistant gives me the rundown on important things. Mailbox, office supplies, photocopy code. I forget the code weekly. She is friendly, patient, kind, but if you cross her, there will be trouble. I vow to never cross her. There is a mind-numbing orientation that begins with a student playing acoustic guitar. A threatening sing-along vibe fills the room. The student is not a chanteur. Most of the audience cringes visibly. I hide in the very last row. For the next 2 days, I accumulate knowledge I will never use. It's math all over again. I'll be teaching 3 classes, 2 of which I've never taught before. It turns out that when you say you can do something, people believe you. 10 minutes before my first class, I run to the bathroom and vomit. I'm afraid of public speaking, which makes teaching complicated. When I walk into the classroom, the students stare at me like I'm in charge. They wait for me to say something. I stare back and wait for them to do something. It's a silent power struggle. Finally, I tell them to do things, and they do those things. I realize that I am, in fact, in charge. Teaching 3 classes requires serious memorization when it comes to student names. The students do tend to blur. It will take nearly 3 weeks for me to remember Ashley A. and Ashley M. and Matt and Mark and so on. I rely heavily on pointing. I color code the students. You in the green shirt, you in that orange hat. I get my first paycheck. We are paid once a month, which requires the kind of budgeting I am incapable of. Life is very unpleasant after the 23rd or so. Still is. I've been a graduate student for so long, it's hard to fathom that one check can have 4 numbers. Then I see how much the man takes. Damn the man. Students do not know what to make of me. I wear jeans and Converse. I have tattoos up and down my arms. I'm tall. I am not petite. I am the child of immigrants. Many of my students have never had a black teacher before. I cannot help them with that. When I was a student listening to a boring professor drone endlessly, I usually thought, I will never be that teacher. One day I'm delivering a lecture and realize in that moment, oh God, I am that teacher. I stare out at my students, most of them not taking notes, giving me that soul-crushing dead-eye stare that tells me, I wish I were anywhere but here, but I also think, I wish I were anywhere but here. They talk faster and faster to put us all out of our misery. They become incoherent. Their dead-eye stares haunt me for the rest of the day, the week, and then even longer. Walking down the hall, I hear a young woman saying, Dr. Gay, over and over, and I think, God, that Dr. Gay is really rude for a girl. I turn around to say something before I realize that she's talking to me. I worry some of my students don't own any clothes with zippers or buttons or other methods of closure and fastening. I see a lot of words faded and stretched across asses, bra straps, pajama pants, often ill-fitting. In the winter, when there is snow and ice outside, boys come to class in basketball shorts and flip-flops. I worry about their feet and their poor little white toes. Helicopter parents email me for information about their children. How is my son doing? How is my daughter doing? Is she attending class? I encourage them to open lines of communication with their children. I politely tell them that there are laws preventing such communication without the child's written consent. The child never consents. There is a plague on grandmothers. The elder relations of my students begin passing away at an alarming rate. I want to warn the surviving grandmothers. I want them to live. The excuses that students come up with for absences and homework amuse me in how ludicrous and improbable they are. They think I want to know. They think I somehow need their explanations of sustenance. They think I don't know they're lying. Sometimes I simply say, I know you're lying. You say it best when you say nothing at all. I try not to be old. I try not to think when I was your age. Thank you.